Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Welcome back to the Brawn Body Podcast. We have a great episode in store for you today. Today we're actually going to be talking about all the mistakes that I have made in my training history and career. So we're going to go through supplements, mobility, cardio, strength training, pretty much all aspects of fitness and kind of review the past 8 to 10 years I've been working out. I started about 13, 14, 15, somewhere in there. And right now I'm 23 going on 24. And in that time, I've also helped and trained hundreds of clients, helped them achieve their health and fitness goals, live better lifestyles, that sort of thing. And I've learned a lot along the way. Mostly what does work and what doesn't work. So today we're going to be giving you what does not work so you don't waste your time on it. So starting off here with cardiovascular and endurance type stuff. So a lot of the mistakes I made when it came to cardio relate to not having enough information and not knowing things. So to start off, I did primarily low intensity, steady state cardio. I thought this was the best form of cardio. If you wanted to get better at running, you just ran further, right? And if you wanted to get faster, you ran further, faster. If you wanted to run 5 miles faster, then you ran 5 miles. And then the next day you did it again and pushed yourself to do it quicker. That's how I viewed cardio. And this is pretty much how I conditioned myself for soccer. For those who didn't know, when I was in high school, I was a diehard soccer player. We played year round for like 4 or 5 years straight or something ridiculous. Now that I think about it, looking back, it was my life for a while. So we did a lot of low intensity, steady state cardio. And despite doing this, I still had issues with my conditioning. So I would get into games, and I was a midfielder, so a lot of running in general, but a lot of, turns, changes of direction, and, speed up, slow down sort of thing. And I was still, gasping for air different times, like breathing real heavy, because I didn't build in any kind of intervals to my training. I didn't match my training to my goal and how I play. So I would say if you're someone who is looking to do cardio, step one is do not just stop at low intensity, steady state, running for distance, comfortable. Add in some intervals, add in some different running workouts, speed up, slow down, change direction. This will kind of add a little bit more of a fun dynamic to your running, and it makes running itself more dynamic because you're changing pace, you're changing direction, that sort of thing. It also, as we know, leads to better results and better gains in endurance. So you might have tuned into some of my episodes in the past where we talk about endurance training and Martin Gibala and the HIIT shock cycles that we talked about in episode 48. That's kind of what we look at being the gold standard for endurance training is these intervals. We've got research that shows 10 minutes worth of 100%, 100+% effort intervals a week gives you the same aerobic gain as 5 hours of steady state cardiovascular endurance. And again, that all came from Martin Gibala's work and research. He is a Canadian exercise physiologist who spent his life studying endurance. So if you want to improve your running game or you want to, lose weight, burn more calories, whatever it is, in a quicker amount of time, intervals are definitely your way to go and the gold standard for that. I also had no concept of how to run. And most people hear that and think, well, you just get up and go run, right? I didn't have any kind of understanding of running form, which, believe it or not, there is a appropriate form for running. I didn't have any concept of footwear and what you were supposed to run in. I just thought, if you had a pair of shoes, you could put them on and run in them. And I had no concept of running volume. I just thought, okay, we need to run more to get into better shape. And I think all three of these things are a common problem amongst runners. Runners are the most injured athlete of any kind. I think it was 80 to 90 some percent of runners get injured every year. It's insane. And a lot of them are overuse related injuries. And I think a lot of them could be attenuated with, again, first, proper form. So if you aren't doing things the way you're supposed to with good form, that's going to stress certain structures that shouldn't be stressed. And what can that result in? Things like stress fractures, things like overuse injuries, because things that aren't used to taking a lot of force or load are now taking a lot of force and a lot of load. So the form I use is based on the POSE method. And I think you can find them over on YouTube at POSE TV, or you can just Google POSE method of running, and I'm sure you'll get all kinds of things. But basically, their whole concept is, your foot strikes below your body. You're not reaching out way ahead with, full knee extension. Everything's kept close. You're watching your cadence, monitoring your cadence, and it's almost like a falling forward kind of pattern to running. It's very unique, and I'm not the best at explaining it. I highly recommend checking it out, though, if you want to work on cleaning up your running form. And with that, too, if you're someone who has issues pronating or supinating at the foot, you can always get a gait analysis done by someone who is specialized in that. Most running stores offer some kind of gait analysis, or different physical therapists who specialize in running can do that as well. When it comes to the footwear, that kind of goes hand in hand with the form. So maybe you are someone who pronates a little too much or supinates a little too much. They have footwear to correct that. So then instead of getting injured, you can correct it, fix the imbalance and deformity with different inserts, orthotics, shoe styles, that sort of thing. And again, if you're just like I was when I was in high school, and you just throw on that old pair of sneakers and you go outside and you run, over time that's going to cause issues. And having the right tool for the job can really make a difference in, not just your performance, but your longevity and reducing your injury risk, and overall just improving your comfort and enjoyment from it. And same with volume. A lot of people, especially in cross country, they're running almost every day for weeks and weeks and weeks, and they don't have a concept of a rest day. And when it comes to your cardiovascular system, it needs time to let these endurance gains kind of sink in, so to speak. There is a limit to everything, and there's a limit to, how much you work your muscles physically in the gym. Like, you don't go in and do 15 sets of biceps every day for, 6 or 7 days straight and then do it all again the next week and expect growth and change, because, by day 3 or 4, your form's going to suck. You're barely moving any weight. Your muscles are tired and fatigued and sore. So if you give a little time to recover, then they come back stronger. And when you go back, you can actually lift more and do more, and your muscles will adapt and grow. And we talked about this extensively in our muscle recovery podcast early on. But essentially, that same concept holds true with endurance. Your body will adapt to endurance training, not just at the cardiovascular and pulmonary sites, but also at a cellular level. We literally see more mitochondria, which, that one thing you remember from 8th grade biology, right? The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. It gives us energy. So when you're doing aerobic training correctly, you're actually going to increase your mitochondrial density. So you have more mitochondria, and they are bigger, better, faster, more efficient at what they do. So obviously, that's going to mean running is a lot easier as a result, because you have improved ability to make and produce energy and clear up and get rid of any kind of waste products. But again, that doesn't just happen right away. It takes time in order for that change to occur. And if you don't give your body the chance to make those changes, you're not going to adapt. And that kind of ties into, that problem of overuse and excessive volume. For me, that was my typical Saturday in high school. Is, as I mentioned, I was into indoor soccer and I was playing soccer year round. Well, in the winter times, I also really liked to ski. So I would go skiing on a Saturday morning for 4 to 5 hours. And when I say skiing, I don't mean sit in the lodge. I mean, we showed up when the mountain opened, we skied until we had to go, and then we left. And I would go home, eat a bowl of pasta, and then drive up north, or, well, wherever my soccer game would be that day, pretty much always north, being a Pennsylvania kid who was playing in a New York-based league. But I would then go play 2 to 3 soccer games. So, indoor soccer games, a little different than outdoor. The field is a little bit shorter, but it's a lot faster paced. You have less people on the floor, so it's more demanding. So in total, I would say there's probably a good, 7 hours worth of cardio in a single day. And that was my life growing up. That was all I knew, right? Sports required running. And I didn't ever think about how, the next day on a Sunday, I always felt run down and just kind of, tired and lazy and fatigued and didn't really want to do anything. I never kind of clicked that maybe I was just doing too much and pushing too hard. Now, there is a point where you can do things like that. And there are people who, these ultra marathoners, they run for 18 plus hours straight, right? Like they just go, go, go. Ironman triathlons, people are taking 12 plus hours consistently of endurance. And it can be done. But what do all these people have in common? They have proper fueling, they have proper foods, they have proper recovery and mobility. And I'm going to save my talk on mobility and recovery because I want to get into that more in a minute here. But, when it comes to nutrition, if you're not fueling your body properly, if you don't have enough food coming in to fuel your next workout session or exercise session, you're not going to have a great workout because you've got no fuel left in the tank, right? If your car is on empty and you go to start it up and drive it, you're not going anywhere, are you? So being able to fuel yourself properly with good nutrition. So we've talked about that before. Things like the wild berries, sweet potatoes, wild rice, keeping it clean and efficient, getting good sources of protein. So high quality grass-fed meats, wild caught fish, free range poultry, that sort of thing. These are all important steps that if you can fix them early on, you see drastic changes and results. And, at the time for me in middle school, high school, I was mostly eating processed foods. I was mostly eating, those high schooler type meals, pizza rolls, Hot Pockets, chicken nuggets, that sort of thing. I even ate hot dogs, which I now shudder at the thought of eating another hot dog. But, my nutrition was not where it should be. And if I knew what I did now and, saw how much of an impact the proper fueling and nutrition can impact you, or how much of an impact it can have. So as you know, right now, I keep everything very clean, very thought out on what I do, when I do it. And as a result, I'm able to work out hard 5+ days a week, every week, because I'm giving my body the right nutrients it needs to recover. You're not going to be able to build muscle, for example, if you're not consuming enough high quality protein. You're not going to be able to get faster at your 100-meter sprint if you don't have the best fuel source for the 100-meter sprint, which is going to be mostly your ATP PC system. So quick sources of carbohydrate energy and phosphocreatine. So taking us into the mobility and recovery mistakes I made. So I didn't really do a whole lot of mobility or recovery in that middle school, high school era. And I wasn't great about it in college either, especially freshman year. Freshman year, I was still in high school mode. Sophomore year onwards, I figured it out and we were good to go. And obviously, as my physical therapy education took its effect on me, I kind of changed the ways I was doing things rather substantially. But early on, middle school, high school, freshman year of college, there was no warm up or cool down for me. I just kind of walked in and started lifting, right? Time was of the essence. Maybe it was football season and, you only had 45 minutes in the weight room. So were you going to spend 20 minutes warming up and cooling down, or were you just going to get in there and start lifting? And, part of that is to blame on that locker room mentality. But still, those, a proper warm up can literally make or break your exercise session. So if you warm up properly, your muscles are going to fire better when you're lifting weights. They're going to use more efficient recruitment patterns when you're running or lifting weights. And as a result, you're going to have better mobility. You're going to move better and feel better while you're moving as a result of a good warm up. And then the cool down afterwards is going to help you prevent injury, minimize muscle tightness, and that sort of thing. So, at the time, it seems like kind of a, extreme thing. Like, oh my gosh, he didn't do any stretching. What an idiot. But you go to the gym and you see people doing it all the time. They get in and get out. And I can assure you that a 5-10 minute warm up, just something to get your heart rate up, warm up your tissues, maybe move around a little bit, some dynamic kind of flows, that sort of thing. Doing that as a warm up, and then something gentle as a cool down. So some light stretches for whatever muscle group you targeted that day. Just, some light movement. I usually like to go on a walk afterwards just to kind of move the blood and kind of circulate through. These strategies of, warming up and cooling down will give you so much more results than, just jumping right into it. And I learned that the hard way because, in high school, I was constantly like, okay, why am I not progressing? Why am I not seeing results? Freshman year of college, why am I not seeing results? And if you follow us on the Instagram, or if you've listened to any of those muscle recovery podcasts from early on, you know how important all of these things are. I think I talked about the benefits of stretching in one of our recent Instagram posts when we were talking about hyperplasia, meaning stretching, if done appropriately and correctly, can literally result in the growth of new muscle. So you can get bigger muscle by stretching. It's called stretching induced hypertrophy. And, had I known that, when I was younger and the whole goal was to add muscle mass, I probably would have taken my stretching a lot more seriously. Now, like I said, I've made some mistakes with this in those early college years. I started getting better, but, sophomore year, I did a lot of foam rolling and static stretching, right? I would just kind of, pull my foot to my butt, and that would be my quad stretch, pull my knee to my chest and hold it there. That would be a good stretch for my hamstrings, all these different things, right? And like I said, it was better than nothing. But, if you're spending 20 to 30 minutes warming up and cooling down, and all you got to show for it is static stretching and foam rolling, you really need to change it up. And here's why. When it comes to mobility, do we really care that much about our ability to stretch something passively? I mean, it's great. It shows that your tissue is relaxed, but I'm more concerned about what can I do actively. Because if you're lifting weights or if you're running, nothing is occurring passively. There's no one else moving you through those motions. It's all active. Your muscles are generating the force required to move whatever body part we're talking about, your arm, your leg, whatever, through space. So it's all about the active aspect of the mobility. And this is where I think different yoga flows especially really shine. A lot of yoga flows require muscle activation and muscle energy in order to work, right? How can you do a warrior pose if you're not contracting some kind of muscle? How can you do a downward dog pose if you don't have some kind of tension in your core? So I like how yoga especially that's just one example. There's multiple other uh, certifications, groups, courses, that sort of thing out there. Functional range conditioning is a good one that just focus on the movement piece of mobility and not just the stretching piece. And I think being sure that you kind of check all the boxes there with both mobility and stretching are great things to do. As I said, I had no concept of nutrition. I kind of talked about that already, but getting into supplements a little bit, I was getting the cheapest protein powder you could find, right? So go to GNC, find the cheap one, buy that one. Go to the clearance section, or at one point it was go to the Walmart, go to the CVS or whatever that way, and get the cheapest one they had. I remember I was taking the CVS brand chocolate white protein powder for a while. I was taking the Body Fortress brand. It seems like everyone starts on that one. I was taking their whey protein for a while too. 6 Star Nutrition, all these, lower quality products, lower quality as in there was probably 30 grams of protein per scoop. And me not knowing, I thought that was a good thing. But there was 50 grams per scoop. So that was saying it was only 60% protein. And in one of our recent episodes, we actually talked all about protein. So if you want to go back and listen to that, that was episode 42, I believe, when we were talking about intermittent fasting. Let me double check just to make sure that was the one real quick before I go out and say that for sure. Yeah, it looks like that was the one. It was either, I think it was that one. If not that one, it was 46. Had to check the notes there. But yeah, so low quality protein, not good. We don't like low quality protein. Low quality protein is not effective. And when I switched to a more high quality based protein, I was amazed at the difference that I felt. I was actually recovering like the companies claimed I would. Oh, it was the protein powder episode. I'm sorry. I just remembered we did that episode 26. That was a little bit of a throwback, but we reviewed, all the supplements in detail. We reviewed protein powders, creatine, pre-workout formulas, all these different things. So highly recommend going back and checking that out. But yeah, you get what you put in, or you get out what you put in. So if you put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. When it comes to supplements and things that are full of, fillers and artificial flavors, colors and sweeteners, carrageenan, all these different things, it doesn't really, you can't put that kind of stuff in your body and be surprised when your performance is not what you expect it to be. So going back to what we talked about in that protein powder podcast, the carrageenan or carrageenan specifically is an emulsifier, comes from seaweed that they add to a lot of popular protein powders. It's in most chocolate milks, that sort of thing. And I believe it's one of the main causes for protein farts because it is very hard to digest. Your body really struggles with it. I think some sources even said it's indigestible. So think of pairing fiber, which is indigestible, and oddly enough, this is a plant material we're talking about, right? It comes from seaweed, so fiber-based. Pair that with dairy, right? Because you're either using a whey protein or a casein protein source, most likely, and you're mixing it most likely in milk. At least that's what, in high school, that was the thing to do. So you've got dairy plus protein plus this weird plant thing. And that just kind of sets up a nightmare situation for your gut. With that too, one of the things we talked about in that episode was we debunked the anabolic window. We said, look, according to the research, from everything we can tell and find, protein timing doesn't matter as much as protein amount. So getting that protein, 30 grams or whatever, right after you work out doesn't matter as long as you get enough protein throughout your day. And this is something I use to this day. I work out in the morning very early, and I don't eat until lunchtime because I'm doing intermittent fasting. I've been doing that for, 3, 4 years now, and I love it. My body's used to it, adjusted to it, and I think it's been very sustainable for me long term. But I haven't had an issue with protein farts. I haven't had a issue with my GI tract or gut health or anything like that, like we did in high school. And I attribute it mostly to just that. I'm not slamming a bunch of protein and artificial stuff right after I just got done working out, because as you know, when you're working out, your blood flows to your muscles. And if your blood is flowing to your muscles, it's not flowing as readily to places like your gut, your stomach, your intestines. And the reason for that is, it's very hard for your body to try and break down food and exercise at the same time. And if you don't believe me, next Thanksgiving, after you get done with the turkey and the stuffing and the potatoes and the gravy and everything, try and go out and go for a run. Right? You do your turkey trot in the morning. You don't do the turkey trot after Thanksgiving dinner, right? It's hard. And I mean right after, right after you finish that piece of apple pie, try and go for a run. The body just doesn't respond well to having to send blood to multiple places at the same time. That's why I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here. But when you pair upper body and lower body explosive movements like a burpee together at the same time, so with the burpee, you're getting the explosive jump up. So we're working our legs explosively. We're getting the push up and plank position, working our upper body. They're very hard to do, and it gets our heart rate up very quick because our bodies just picked up, oh my gosh, I have to send blood to pretty much everywhere in a very short amount of time. So just to kind of close this piece out, go back, review some of our other podcast episodes that go into supplements and nutrition a little more in depth. Highly recommend you optimize those because quality can make a huge difference. Hey everyone, just want to interrupt this show real quick to let you know that you can now support the Brawn Body Podcast with a link in our show notes and description. Right here in whatever platform you're listening on, Apple, Spotify, whatever, just click that support link. And if you feel generous and inclined, you can actually support us by donating a small amount of money on a monthly or fixed basis, whatever you prefer. But we really appreciate you supporting us because, as you know, I put a lot of time, effort, energy, that sort of thing into this podcast. We typically average around 3 to 5 hours a week for recording an hour 10 of total podcast time. So there's a lot of extra legwork, research, that sort of thing that you might not see. And having that financial support is definitely a huge incentive for me to keep going. And if you don't feel inclined to do that, that is perfectly okay. All I ask you to do is like, subscribe, and share, and to check out our social media at Brawn Body, Brawn with a W. All right, sorry for that little intermission. Now getting back on track with strength training. So this was kind of my focus growing up, right? I wanted bigger muscles. I was the skinny kid. I was 5'11" by the time I was in 8th grade. And throughout high school, I was mostly, 130 pounds. The lowest I ever got was 125 at 5'11", which that's a scary picture. And by the time I was a senior, I was about 175, 180. So we definitely succeeded in that we were able to gain strength and gain muscle. But I definitely had less of a clue and idea as to what I was doing. So I emphasized chest and arms, like pretty much every young male in high school that was working out did at the time. That was our emphasis. We had no concept of proper form. It was all about, how many reps you can do and how much weight you can do. And I My squats were awful. My deadlifts were awful. My overhead press was awful. Just the form on everything. And again, that kind of goes hand in hand with mobility. If you don't have the mobility to do something, then when you do it, it's not going to look good. So start with the mobility, get the movement pattern down first. And once you can move, then you can increase the load and progress from there. But way too much chest and arm work, no concept of form, and my splits absolutely sucked. So I was using those bodybuilder splits. So, chest one day, back one day, legs one day. Except for me, it pretty much looked like, okay, pushing, back and biceps, which was much more bicep focused than back focused at the time, and maybe a leg day, and then chest, and then arm day, and then maybe chest again. I was bench pressing like 4 times a week. It was great because I got really good at bench pressing, but it kind of sucked because, like I said, I was bench pressing, but I wasn't doing a whole lot else. And, looking back on it, I kind of wish I did some of those other exercises and took them a little more seriously. I still had a decent squat record and decent deadlift record and all that sort of thing. But again, the form was absolute garbage and I didn't feel good doing them. And I definitely didn't look as good at the time, even into freshman year of high school or freshman year of college for that matter. I was moving big weight, but I didn't really have the gains and performance that I wanted from it. So I could walk in and squat 375 pounds once. Great. But my form was, again, garbage. And then I would go on to do like a different exercise and I had no carryover. So, I could do that 1 rep max squat, but when it went over to be time to do like a lunge, for example, I struggled to do a 95-pound barbell lunge. It's just, I didn't have a whole lot of foundational pieces. And now my training is almost all foundational pieces. So we focus on those compound movements and we focus on training them multiple times a week. So, I squat multiple times a week. I deadlift multiple times per week, usually just like 2 or 3. And it's not always heavy loaded. It's okay to do body weight squats, 3 by 10 on a day when you're working primarily upper body. And the reason I do that is going back to that mobility piece. If you don't use it, you lose it. So if you keep running your body through a full range of motion squat, you're going to keep that ability for a longer period of time than if you only did it, say, once a week. So get your split right, doing something more. Right now I do a upper body, lower body, pull, push, lower body, and then accessory days on the weekends. And that allows me to hit multiple muscle groups multiple times per week, and I adjust the volume accordingly. So instead of doing, 30 plus sets for one muscle group in one day and spending an hour and a half in the gym, I do maybe 10 sets for, chest and back on one day, and then I do 10 sets the next day. So it's kind of broken up more and split out more. And that constant stimulus to your body and to your muscles that, hey, we're using this, we need this, helps prevent muscle breakdown. So less muscle lost, more muscle gained. It's just a more effective and efficient way to train, and just really helped me increase my performance, my form, my, what I got and took out of the gym in general. So, I kind of skipped over that chest and arm work thing. I mentioned that a few times, but if you didn't know, your back is significantly more important than your chest and your biceps will ever be. And the reason for that is your primary shoulder stabilizers, so your rotator cuff. 3 of those muscles are located on your shoulder blade in your back. Well, if those muscles attach to your shoulder blade, then the muscles that connect to your shoulder blade and move your shoulder blades, your scapular muscles, are probably going to play a pretty important role in the shoulder, don't you think? They do. And these muscles are all in your back. So your trapezius, your rhomboids, your lats, they're all so key for injury prevention. They even function in strength as well, especially with the deadlift, squat. They give you a strong brace. The lats are active, the traps are active in both of those movements. The lats kind of tie into the core a little bit too, because as you know from that core training episode we did, episode 11, the lats across the back attach all the way down at the hip. Your lats attached to your sacrum, your lats attached to your iliac crest, all the way up to your arm. So if you can tighten them down, that kind of fixes everything in between, so your spine, and allows you to move more effectively and efficiently and move as a unit. You might have seen that trick before you deadlift, click the bar a few times to activate your lats, because when your lats are active, your back stays straight. Or you might have done deadlifts with band resistance as well to keep your lats active throughout the movement. So just to kind of summarize that, make sure you work your posterior chain and not just the mirror muscles in front. Have a appreciation for form, and make sure your training split matches what you're trying to get out of it. Those bodybuilder splits of doing everything once a week are not an effective or efficient way to train long term, and I do not recommend that. Last two pieces here. I didn't really have a concept of muscle tension. I just went in, I did my reps, and that was it. I didn't really play around with the speed at which I was doing the reps, faster, slower, that sort of thing. And now I realize how powerful the tempo of the rep can be. And if you don't believe me, go do 10 push-ups, okay? Just do 10, quick as you can. Now, when you're done with that, do 10 push-ups, but make each rep last 10 seconds. I'm telling you right now, that second one is going to be a lot more challenging. And again, it goes back to muscle tension. So the slower you move, the more tension the muscle has to build, the more motor units it has to recruit. So if you want to get stronger, you do slower movements. And, when we see powerlifting competitions, they're not necessarily, flying through their reps there. One, because they're using big weight, and two, because they have to pause or else the rep doesn't count. But still, if you want to get stronger, you build tension. You build muscle tension. You increase time under tension. Gymnasts are a prime example of this. Gymnasts are known for having very large muscles in their biceps, especially. And people look at that and think, okay, but they're not in the gym. They're not doing curls. What are they doing? They're on the rings or they're on parallel bars for extended periods of time. And what are they doing? They're holding contracted positions of their arm muscles for prolonged periods of time. So they're building insane amounts of muscular tension, and as a result, their body adapts. So that muscle tension piece is big. I overlooked that, and I also overlooked the concept of progressions. So, like I said, I benched, 3-4 times a week. I pretty much always used somewhere between 185 pounds and 225 pounds. Very rarely did I go any more. Very rarely did I go any less. And I think about it now, and I think, had I maybe bumped up the weight every now and then, or if I was going for more of a endurance kind of goal with my serratus anterior there, maybe I would have decreased the weight a little bit and increased the reps. Maybe I would have played around with different variations of the bench press instead of just barbell bench press over and over and over and over. And, you see me doing that now with things like the one-arm dumbbell bench press. I've really grown to love that variation. But I didn't play around enough. And I think ultimately when it comes to these exercises, you have to be able to adapt. So if something's easy, make it harder. If something's too hard, make it easier. And if you don't like what you're doing, try changing it. If it hurts, change it so it doesn't hurt. Or go and see someone who can evaluate and assess what's going on and tell you, hey, you need to do more of this, you need to do less of that, that sort of thing, just to kind of help even it out and prevent injuries and imbalances. So just to kind of summarize, because that was a lot of talking, starting off here, we talked about cardio, and our key takeaways there was I thought low intensity, steady state cardio was the best way to go about it. And I was wrong. High intensity interval training is much more effective and efficient. I had no concept of good form with running, which we recommended the pose method. I didn't really have a concept of proper footwear, which we recommend getting some kind of assessment or evaluation and recommendations for appropriate footwear for running or whatever task you're going to be doing, cycling, skiing, rowing, whatever. And volume, not overtraining and overreaching, no excessive amounts on a regular basis, being smart about your training approach, making sure we do practice recovery, good recovery habits, and we focus on improving our mobility and staying loose, making sure we use proper nutrition strategies, proper fueling. Hot pockets and pizza rolls will only get you so far. And making sure that we, don't warm up by static stretching for half an hour, but we use our warm up as a effective and efficient time to increase our heart rate, increase our tissue temperature, and dynamically move around and prepare our body to exercise so we can get more out of our exercise session. And again, optimizing nutrition, I can't say that enough. And as we just talked about with strength training, don't train the mirror muscles exclusively. Make sure everything is even and symmetrical, and try and work out those imbalances. Have an appreciation for proper form and proper depth and proper tempo and tension. Don't do the bodybuilder splits. I can't say this enough. Once I switched off of a bodybuilder split, my results skyrocketed. And make sure you change and adapt exercises as needed. Now, that's a lot of stuff. And again, a lot of mistakes that I've made. How can you go about taking all that, synthesizing that into something you can do right now? The short answer is you can't. So you're going to pick one of those things and start there. You can't make all these different changes at one time, right? So start small. Maybe change your split. So instead of doing chest on Monday and chest on Thursday and chest on Saturday, maybe you do upper body work on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And you do lower body work Tuesday and Thursday. And the intensity of those sessions is going to change based on how you're feeling. So maybe the week starts off Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, great high energy. Thursday, Friday come around and, you were working hard. You were up late watching whatever TV shows on Wednesday nights. The list goes on, and then those later sessions, you back off the intensity a little bit. Maybe you do a lower intensity, so less weight for your movements, and you do higher repetitions to work different rep ranges, different goals, that sort of thing. You change and adapt as you need to. And then from there, maybe you add in a, better warm up and cool down. And then maybe you make some nutrition changes, slow, gradual. Now, if you struggle with any of this, luckily, we're available. You can find us at Brawn Body, Brawn with a W, on social media, or you can email us at brawnbodytraining@gmail.com. And we answer our emails, we answer our DMs. So either one, whichever you prefer, that will work. And, if you're really struggling with this and you want our help, you can actually sign up for custom fitness programs and consultations and workout plans and online personal training even. I will literally Zoom you and we can go through your workouts together. It's just like having me there, except I'm not physically there. I'm there through the magic that is the internet. So if any of that sounds of interest to you or to anyone please reach out and let us know, because we'd be happy to work with you, help you and make you our next success story. Because as we just talked about in our first episode of 2021, our Motivation Monday there, exercise and fitness, it's more than just, looking good or getting in shape. You are fighting for a better life, and you are improving all aspects of your life. Every part of your body benefits from exercise: cognitive, cardiovascular, muscular, sexual. I'll throw that in there, right? Why not? So with that in mind, thank you for listening to this episode of the Brawn Body Podcast. Again, please make sure you like, subscribe, and share with a friend, and be sure to follow on social media. Thank you again for listening and supporting, and we will see you next Monday for another episode of Motivation Monday.